Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go! Hello and welcome. I'm George the Antique Nomad. This is my monthly recap of eBay sales so that you get to find out the results of my experiment where each month I take 20 items of a wide range of categories in the antique and vintage realm and I put them up for auction on eBay. My level 2 and level 3 members sponsor this and we want to thank them, and they do get early access to this. So if you'd like to get early access to see these listings as they drop, you are welcome to join us by hitting that join button or checking out the membership link in the description. The reason that I do this is partly to be able to amplify on things, tell you a little bit deeper information about particular items that I come across that I think are more interesting, perhaps more valuable, just have a good story behind them. And then we put them on eBay generally for a 10-day auction period, and we see how they do in the marketplace. And the reason I do the auctions is because we want to see how these items are doing now. If we sell them now, what are they going for currently? Not listing them in a store and hoping they sell sometime in the next year or two, but now. And so each month I put this out. The level 2 and 3 members get early access to see these items as they drop. And then it goes out to the broader market. We will take a look now and see how they did. Last month was a good month. I was very pleased because I was able to sell a total of 18 out of 20 items, and that's a pretty good percentage as far as I'm concerned. And the first one I'm going to show you is this. I thought this was really neat, and this is a story about how we do things in the real world versus how we do things online. This particular piece turned out to be a much better idea to sell online than in the real world. I owned this for a long time. I had it in antique malls. It's a wonderful set. It is a candle snuffer, all hand wrought. This is from the 1840s approximately. You can see the way the scissors are done, that it was all put together by hand. Everybody had to have one of these back then because everybody had to have candlelight. And so you needed something where you could trim the wick, snuff the candle, and have a pointy object to stick in the candle to get the wick out if it fell into the wax and solidified. So of course, after you did all that messy stuff, you needed a tray to put it on. And people back then, the average household didn't have a lot of fancy decorative items. They didn't have vases and pictures and lots of mirrors and little tchotchkes and figurines. They had basic things they used every day, and so they would decorate them. And this is wonderfully done with the painting of the butterflies. I got a kick out of this one too. I'll show you in the other picture because you can tell this one was owned by someone who was right-handed, who used it for a long time, because every time they set that in that tray, the point went to the corner and chipped away the paint a little bit, and that is why it is more worn in the bottom left corner, because the right-hander set it on that tray that way every single time. It's a neat piece. I had this in an antique mall for a long time, and it just was so dark and small, and it just got lost in the showcase it was in. I actually tried it in several places, and it just didn't ever get noticed. As soon as I put it on eBay where it could be isolated and people could see what a great piece it was, it sold for more than I had on it in the mall. With 3 bids, it went for $56. That's a pretty typical price for these days. In fact, a little bit better. A lot of these only sell in the $40 to $45 range, but the butterflies are a little more unusual. So that was a fun thing to see, and it was great to have somebody finally appreciate it and see it for what it was. This next piece, I really like this. This is Broadmoor pottery. It was a large flower frog. It might look like a little guy in the picture that you see here, but it's actually about 8 or 9 inches around. And it's got that wonderful ruddy sort of maroon color. And it was signed by the fellow who was one of the progenitors of the pottery. This is P.H. Genter. This one, because it says Denver, was only done for the last 2 years of production, 1937 to 39. This Broadmoor pottery was done originally in Colorado Springs near where Van Briggle produced, but then they moved to Denver their last 2 years. It's a wonderful piece. You don't see a lot of Broadmoor pottery. This actually went to a viewer in Pennsylvania who appreciated it, and I think she made a very wise choice. I was very happy that she got it. It got 2 bids and went for $61. Now this next item here, this is vintage, and I can show you why I know that, because first of all, we have a tag that says Made in USA. We also have a tag that says it's small, and small is a little bit of problem sometimes in clothing, especially when you're talking biker related, because a lot of the folks who are into that are larger people. So I wasn't sure exactly how this would do, but that nice embossing with that great design with the Live to Ride, Ride to Live, and the Harley Eagle, that was the selling point. It went for $45. It went in 1 bid, and that's the price it should have sold for. That's exactly what they seem to go for over and over, and I was happy that it went. Now this next piece is another example of something that sat for a long time in inventory, but not in my inventory. I actually was helping an older dealer who is retired sell some of her things. This is a silk done in a jacquard weaving type of material in a manner that was originally popularized in England, that was called Stevens grafts there. Then the French came back into the market and started doing these. And this is a French piece, probably 1880s in a later frame. It's very pretty. Appraiser is the signature in the lower right corner. I can show you that here. I thought that this was a really neat piece. The market has changed on these a lot. When she had it in her inventory, she had it priced at $100. It did not sell for her during the heyday of the popularity of such pieces for $100, and neither did it sell for $100 for me. It sold for $41. It got 2 bids. I honestly felt that $40 was the bare minimum that we should take for the item. It got just above that. I think that one of the issues with this may have been, even though it's an old frame, which I'll show you here, that it was not a frame as old as the print itself or the weaving. And so I think people may have been a little bit thrown by that, but I was not willing to reframe it to try to get more money. Now this is an interesting story here. I'll show you a little picture that'll tell you the story. When this originally sold, this Pierre Cardin cufflink set, it sold for $24. You see the original tag in the box here. When I sold it on eBay, it sold for $24. It's a really neat looking set. It's a little hard to photograph. I have a new camera phone, and the camera phone does pretty well, but when you get in really close, it can be a little bit hard. And also the reflectivity off of the brass made them look sort of smudgy in a way. This is one of these things where you order it on eBay, and when you get it, you say, oh, it's nicer than I thought it was from the pictures. Pictures make a big difference. I was happy, though, that we at least got the $24. And honestly, these sorts of cufflinks, that is sort of the starting price on eBay. I thought that we did okay considering everything involved with that. Now, I put 3 coins on eBay, and I'm going to show you the first one here. This one was an 1880s for San Francisco Morgan dollar, and I'll show you the back here as well. It was in uncirculated condition, meaning it had never been held by human hands. Now, when I first got this piece, I was very excited because there's different grades of uncirculated coins as well. And if you have something that is uncirculated, that has had some little, they would throw these in bags when they came out of the mint. So this one had a bag mark that is a little scratch in front of her nose. There's a little bit of wear on her cheek. That's from rubbing around with other coins. Even though they never were touched by human hands, they rubbed against each other. If you can get one that was at the bottom of the bag or the top of the bag that has hardly been scratched, well, that is your very top value, and that could have been several $100s. And I was hopeful, but when I took it to my coin grader, he's very realistic, and if anything, he encourages me to grade a little lower than things are, which I think is logical, because you don't want to misrepresent. It's especially important with coins because they will send it back and you will get negative feedback. And in this business, your reputation is what you have. You sell this coin, you wait to have the next one, then you sell it. But in between, you have your reputation to live on. And if you want to be able to continue to be a reseller, you have to cultivate a good reputation on eBay. So I tend to price things and and grade them a little more harshly than other people might. And because of that, I do not get any complaints. And $66 was pretty good. You see, it got 12 bids. Coins are the most collectible item of all categories. They have been for time immemorial, really. Coins are the #1 collected thing in the United States. And so it went higher than a lot of uncirculated coins of this particular age and mint mark do. Now, this went to a viewer, and I was so happy because I thought it was such a neat piece. I got it when I was out west on my last trip. I actually got 3 of them at the same time. I've seen them sell for as much as 100 plus. This one went for 67 approximately. What was great is that it was not broken at the legs, which oftentimes happened because that was the thinnest point and people would not have them hung on the wall. They'd put them in a stack, they'd pick them up by the feet, and the weight of the rest of it would snap them, and then they'd glue them and hang them on the wall. So the fact that this one was in perfect shape meant that it had a chance to sell well, and I was happy with what it got. I certainly made a good profit between the 3 of them. I was very pleased with how that turned out. And it's just so much fun, such a great graphic. I always am pleased when someone who watches me on YouTube is able to actually buy something from me on eBay, because I don't do a whole ton of online selling. I do have a store. I mainly do books and sports cards because I have a friend who assists me, and that's his bailiwick. And then I put other things on for this once a month thing, and then occasionally as other things come up that need to be on eBay or reach a larger market. So $69.97 was actually the final price on 3 bids, and I was pretty satisfied with that. This piece also is just so pretty, and I put this on because a viewer bought the last piece that I put on. I don't get a whole lot of Moorcroft. It's so beautifully painted. I love the designs and the depth, the way that they're sculpted, and you get all that color. This one was a relatively new piece. We can show you that mark here, the Moorcroft and Made in England. I thought that the fact that this went for $77 on 10 bids showed that there really is active interest in good pottery and ceramics. The pottery market seems like it really is coming back. And that's great because it has been in the doldrums a while, which means you can find stuff as a reseller in the ceramics market and make money. It's not something where, a lot of people talk about trends and bolos and things like that. And it's great if you can hit it right then when it's the trend. But trends come and go so fast. And the great thing with antiques and vintage is that they've gone up, they've gone down, they've gone sideways. They've been through all the trends. And now we're just selling to the people who really love them. And they are not trend focused, they are focused on what they really like. And that's what I like, and that's who I like to sell to. This went to someone who was very happy and sent me a very nice note about how it was going to match the other piece of Moorcroft she had, and she was so excited to be collecting it. Now this next piece, this is one where time got away from me, and I think if I had been able to do a little bit more research and talk about the name of this pattern and talk a little bit more about why this was special, it might have gone for more. As it was, I tripled my money, so I was satisfied. This is Sasha Brostoff, and Sasha B is the signature, which means that one of the people in the factory painted it. He did the full signature if he painted it. This is from his first factory, and that's why I, showed a picture of the backside of a blank nothing, because that is the way that you can tell. The second factory items all had some sort of a mark on the back, and so I thought that might actually make it go higher. It did get 5 bids. It sold for $22.50 plus shipping. I think part of it may also have been that, again, full disclosure, this is not cracking you see here. This is crazing. This is just crazing where the top clear glaze is cooling at a different rate than the painted colored glazes below it. And when they fire it, there will be internal cracking between those layers. It's a natural part of the production. There is nothing wrong with it. But I think because of the way it looked in the picture, it may have dissuaded some buyers. In reality, when you saw the piece, it wasn't anything you would ever notice. And it is certainly not anything that is considered damage or anything wrong with it. So because of those things, I think that my inability to give more information on this piece may be why it didn't go for more, but I was still satisfied with what it got, and what a wonderful piece. The person who got it was really excited about it. This piece is the first time in a long time that I have used a reserve on eBay. This is a Pilgrim glass cameo piece where they do the layers of cameo, the layers of case glass, and then carve back in a cameo fashion to get the design. So if we look from the top here, I think you'll get a better idea. There is a clear layer that you really can't see over a white layer over a maroon layer in this case. And then they have to carve back. Because of that, a lot of these broke in production and they're hard to find as a result, or at least they were costly to make. And so this one was very popular. You do see this one more frequently, but this particular issue was an artist proof, and it says so right on the bottom. Kelsey/Pilgrim. Kelsey Murphy was the designer of the cameo glass for the Pilgrim Glass Company. She did cameo work for Fenton. She's actually now designing for Blanco, so she's come back out of retirement. I think she's in her 70s now. I met her when she was about my age. I'm very excited to hear that and to see the lines that she puts forth for Blanco. But she did really great stuff. This one, an artist proof, means that, yes, they were making a small run of these so that the artist could look at it and say, yes, this is coming out the way I intended it. Go ahead and put it into production. The production was never great on this maple leaf piece, but it was one of the pieces they did more of than some of the other lines. And so it typically sells in the $250 range. I was selling this for a client, and I also knew that I have the Fenton Glass Convention coming up on the 24th through 27th of July in Marietta, Ohio. And by the way, if you are interested in going, there are still a few rooms available at the Lafayette Hotel. If you go to Rosie's Auction House on YouTube, Heidi, who runs that, is the person behind this Fenton convention, and she can help set you up. We really hope that a lot of people will come. There's already, I think, an entire floor of rooms booked. We're going to have a lot of fun there. So I didn't want to give this piece away because that belongs to a client of mine and because it's a wonderful piece that would have sold very well there. But I was so pleased to see that this got more than I expected. Putting a reserve price is expensive. eBay, I believe, got about 10% of the selling price just for the reserve. So it's not something that you do on just anything. But if you have a piece that is really nice and you know you need to get a certain number, I put a reserve of $250 on this. It hit the reserve right away. It got 15 bids and it ended up selling for $336, and I was very happy with that. It was my biggest sale on eBay of this batch and absolutely worth every penny. And the person who got this was very excited about that as well. Now next here, another wonderful piece of glass. Now this one only went for 50. It did get 4 bids. I only started it at 40, I think. These typically do sell from about $40 to $75 depending, and it's because they're relatively common. This was something that if you worked in Murano and started to be skillful enough to do the figures, these swans they're very graceful, they're very beautiful. I like the colors in this one particularly. They're late 60s with that golden teal. But these are pieces that are relatively common. They're certainly not as complicated to make as some of the figures that have appendages and pieces coming off of them that took multiple steps. And for that reason, they don't sell as high as some other Murano from the era. But I thought it was a great piece, and it went for $50 on 4 bids. This next item I thought was just great. This is a factory catalog from France, and it's talking about terracotta products. It's the Boîte Castellanauderie, which, that's a mouthful. But it basically is showing vases and ornaments of various sorts. You see this wonderful Art Nouveau design with the woman at the potter's table. Or perhaps she's just decorating a fern stand. I'm not sure if she's supposed to be the potter or if she's just supposed to be a neoclassically dressed woman who's lovely to show you how lovely their things are. In any event, their items really are lovely. You can see on the first page they did a little bit of color where they showed their various items that were for garden wear. but then there were pages, I think 16 in all, that showed the ornamentation on the houses. I figured that somebody who was really interested in this sort of neoclassic design would get this either as something just fun to read through, or as something that perhaps would have been a way to get ideas for making modern pieces that have this neoclassical style, because these certainly could be scaled. They show all the dimensions and everything. It sold for $29.99. I thought it might well do that because catalogs like this typically do, if they're more interesting and older, go in that price range. So I was very pleased to see that it went, and it went on 11 bids. I think I started it at $9.99 if I'm not mistaken. And so it was actively sought after, and as it should be. It was a wonderful piece. I like selling this sort of thing online because this is rather delicate. I had it at several shows. I always ended up putting it in the back so that people wouldn't handle it too much because I was afraid it would get damaged, and because of that it really wasn't seen. So I realized that shows were not the place to take this, particularly outdoor shows with paper are difficult. So this is another category where eBay is oftentimes the best place to put something. Coming back into ceramics, this is a Roseville Teapot. Now this is the white rose, one of their more common and less expensive patterns, and this is smaller as teapots go for them. This is a 4-cup rather than a 6-cup. But what a pretty piece. I really like the simplicity of the lid. This is just the teapot, not with the cream and sugar. I was very excited to see this sell for the price it did. They used to go, granted, for about $65 more than that, but that was then. And the prices of Roseville have definitely come down off of the peaks that they were 20 years ago, partly because reproductions came into the market, and partly because, like a lot of things get really popular, everybody wants them, and then they start to price up where the new people who are interested can't access them at those prices. Roseville is starting to sell again. People are not afraid of the reproductions anymore because if you look at the bottom, it's so easy to tell. The clay on this is right. It says USA. A few of the Chinese fakes say USA too. They finally made them stop doing it, but the signature isn't right. The color of the clay isn't right. The decoration is really sloppy and terrible. So you really won't be fooled. And people are starting to collect Roseville again because they realize that. And this piece went after 7 bids for $133.50 plus shipping. I really liked this. This is una Bolsa original from Matamoros, Mexico. It looks a lot like Enid Collins, and this was the first piece to sell. It went for the buy it now price of $79, and I kind of suspected it would. It's a little less expensive than Enid, although not a whole lot because it's got that look, and it is a maker that people do recognize. You don't see a lot of these. You see many more of the Enid Collins because I don't think they made these all that long. Here we see Una Bolsa Original with Matamoros, Tampico, Mexico signature, and even the initials of the person in the corner there who did the painting. Just so much fun. And a gentleman bought this for his wife or girlfriend, I'm not sure which. I don't ask those questions, but he was very excited to get it, and he ordered it and had it shipped right away so it would get there in time for some sort of special occasion. And what a fun look that is. I just to find one in great shape with no rhinestones missing, no cracks, hadn't been used to death, wasn't all beaten up around the corners. You know, people loved these and they used them, and they used them kind of harshly because they just figured they could get another one or that the styles would change. Well, the styles changed and now people really want them, and finding them in good shape is not the easiest thing. So that was the first thing that sold out of this batch this month. This is a wonderful set of Royal Gouda candlesticks, and I have to say it sold right away for the buy it now price of $45. And you think, boy, that's not a very high buy it now price. Maybe you should have put it on and let it run and not put a buy it now, or put a higher buy it now. Well, hindsight is 20/20, but the truth is that as pretty as these are, another set had sold for only $29 very recently before I listed these. And I believe that the fact that I got more is because, you know, sometimes when you believe in something, you just bring that energy and you can sell it better than someone else can. I really like Royal Gouda. I've sold off most of the pieces I had out of a very large collection. It's been very popular. It's just really pretty. This is a 1930s, 40s era design, so not quite as old. That's one of the reasons the prices are not as high. It's not the classical Art Nouveau with the very elaborate designs, but so attractive, lots of fun color. It had a good mark on the bottom. So I was pleased to get 45 for these. I thought that was a fair price for the market as it is today. Here's another item that sold very quickly, and I wasn't surprised. I just had gotten this on my travels coming back from the West Coast to the Midwest, and this is Charles Kahn of Miami. This is one of the bags that he made in the 1950s when the lucite bag craze became very, very hot. He was known for these particular clasps that you see here. What was great about this one was the hinge was in great shape. It wasn't scratched. It wasn't beaten hard from use. It wasn't cracked. It wasn't melted or warped. All those things are issues with lucite purses. And the clasp works and holds the lid on, because if this clasp gets loose, which they often did if they were used a lot over time, then the purse will literally fall open and it's just something you can set on a shelf and you wouldn't be able to take it out and use it. So this one was in good shape. It went for 110 on one bid because that was my buy it now price. I set it at that buy it now price because that's a pretty typical price I get for these. You can see the Charles Kahn label right there. I did disclose that there was a tiny bit of greening on the brass around the inside hinge. That did not bother them, nor did it bother me. Just a really neat thing, and it sold as it should have right away. Now here we have something, a 1929S Standing Liberty Quarter. This was the situation where my coin grader disagreed with the grade that was on here. This was marked EF+, which is extra fine, and that is the highest grade short of almost uncirculated or uncirculated that you can get. He felt that it might only be very fine because he had to do this, help me from a picture. We couldn't be together in person for him to see this. And the truth of the matter is that this was a coin that was a very beautiful design, but weakly struck. It had so much detail that a lot of the detail didn't come out when they made them at the mint. That was a big problem in the early 1900s with this and the peace dollar design as well. And because of that, a lot of these are not very crisp. So he encouraged me to list it as a VF and then say that it could grade as high as EF. Well, in very fine, it should have sold for about $35, which I believe is about where I started it on. Well, it went to $83 because the bidders, and there were 16 bids, they saw what I saw in it, which was it's a beautiful coin. It's got some mint luster. The EF plus designation was given by the person who sold it originally. I found the receipt in this collection. It was sold for $8 in 1968. And it sold for $83 in 2022. So if you adjust for inflation, well, that's probably about right. It is really exciting to me that this sold and did better than expected, by quite a bit actually. Now the last coin I had was this one, and this is an example. This one sold after 5 bids for $50. This one, it might have sold for more if I had had the time to have it sent to a professional grader, put in a slab with a professional grade on it. It seemed to be a very satiny, gem brilliant uncirculated, as they call them. But even at that, that would have to be graded by a professional and sold as such. eBay is very strict that you cannot start to designate levels of uncirculated coins, the very, very best that have never been touched and have no scratches and no nicks from being around other coins, down to the ones that have never been touched but maybe have a mark, maybe have some tarnish, that sort of thing. eBay won't let you do that unless you have it professionally graded. And because of that, it sold for the price it sold based on what I was able to say about it. I think they got a good deal. On the other hand, It's a fairly common $50, and so $50 I was very happy to get. I thought that was a perfectly fine price under the circumstances. And so that went off to a willing buyer and is part of their collection now. I am a coin collector myself, and had I not already had that coin, I would have wanted to keep it for my collection. But I was already set, so that is that. And now I'm going to go back to the full camera here because I wanted to show you the two items that did not sell and talk a little bit about why. The first one, and let me get it here. The first one is this. I think it's wonderful. Some people think it's ugly. I think it's wonderful ugly. This was made in Miami. You notice it looks like a fish. These were done during the Florida land boom, and they were done for tourists who were coming down, and they were sold along the roadsides. Now, I think part of the problem is when you're in person with this, you can see that this dark spot here is just a natural spot in the coral. But even though I described it as being non-damaged, I think in the pictures that looks like a big old hole. It isn't, but that's how it looks. And a picture's worth 1,000 words, even if those words are incorrect. And so that, I believe, was a problem. The other problem with this, of course, is that, you know, this is an example. Some things sell better if you're trying to find something, some customer in a region far from you. This would obviously sell to someone who is into Floridiana. In some cases, eBay and online is a great place because you can reach people who aren't near you. On the other hand, some things sell better in person. I put in the description that it works. It does work, but it's got one of these old original cords with no insulation. That may have scared some people and put them off because they couldn't plug it in and see that it works very well, and that is the original, and that's why I left it the way it was. I'm not going to change the cord on this. And the other thing is that, you know, this is the kind of thing that is maybe more likely to sell to somebody who's a serious collector of Floridiana, who lives in Florida, who's there all the time, and who would take a look at this piece, hello there, and say, wow, that's really neat, and I get it, and it fits my lifestyle, it fits my decor. I have to say this would actually look really cute in my house, and I mentioned when I did the video that I was tempted to keep it, and I think that might be part of the problem too. Sometimes when you're not really ready to sell something, it gets that vibe, and people stay away from it because they know that it's really meant to be with you. So maybe that's meant to be with me for a while. If not, it will be meant to be in Florida in a mall space where people who understand and collect that sort of thing go. And then the other piece that didn't sell was this. Now this was priced at $195, I believe is what I was looking for it. And it's a beautiful piece of Sterini art glass. I think it's wonderful. Now, here's the thing. Sterini is still in business, and they still make this papaya, as they call it, with the feather pulls. Papaya is the color. But I have the card here that talks all about it and demonstrates by reading the card that this is first generation and that this is not something that is current production. This was made in California before he moved his studio to Hawaii, which he did after 9/11. He decided he wanted to be in Hawaii instead. So you have this wonderful piece. It's got the signature, it's got all the information, but because I'm known for antiques and vintage, and this piece has the appearance of being something you could order new, even though we have proof that it is not, I think that may be the reason that it did not go. I am not concerned about that in the least because I do have the Fenton convention coming, and I think that this piece is so beautiful that when someone is able to see it in person and able to read this card and really understand, I mean, I put all this in the description, but you know, people are in a hurry. Ooh, I like that piece. Oh, wait, I could get that new. And they're not paying attention to the fact that, no, this actually is out of production. So I think when this is with glass aficionados who are able to be there and we can talk and they can really understand this piece, that it will likely sell there. Or I may actually take it to the Portland Antique Show, which is the 8th and 9th, the Rose City Vintage Market in Portland is the 8th and 9th of July. That's my next show. And so I think I will take it to that first. And if it doesn't sell there, then it will go to the Fenton convention. And I will be surprised if I own this by the end of July. I have a feeling it will find a home. So those were the ones that didn't go, and I think there were understandable reasons for that, but everything else sold. I was pleased with the prices that we got. It's been really fun to talk about why we do this. It is partly to experiment and to see what the market is now. And it's also because I want to bring some of my better items online and give everybody an option of having access to some of the things that I prize and think are interesting. So thank you so much. There will be another one of these eBay videos coming out very soon. And so if you're a level 2 or level 3 member, please do check the membership and the community tab, and you will be able to find out when that's all happening. And we will come back again with you soon, all of you folks, to talk about how those things sell when we do our next eBay wrap-up. I'm George the Antique Nomad. Please check out the social media and links in the description, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now. Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community, here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below, click the bell to be notified when new videos upload, leave a comment below, and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at the Antique Nomad. Bye for now.